I'm a college student. I'm looking to keep this project in the dark as much as possible, which is why I'm posting this under a duplicate account. I'm looking to hire a team of professionals to help me animate a story. One that is a different take on a show that I'm sure you're familiar with. If you think I'm a blind fanatic that isn't prepared to be a director, I'll show you some of my work if you're curious. However, I think it's important to explain where I got my inspiration from. It was the weekend and I was around the age of 19. My family offered to pay me if I did some babysitting for my niece. Since it was only 2 days, I accepted the offer. I couldn't complain. My family is known for being generous and overpaying for services done in their home and yard. I also needed the money for my hobbies. Speaking of hobbies, my niece had a number of them. She would play video games, watch shows, show me projects she was working on for her arts and crafts class. Everything worked out fine until I noticed something strange with her behavior. Whenever Looney Tunes played in the television, she would always walk away and do something else. This made me confused because she used to watch the show a lot, but I didn't say anything about it at first. It just wasn't the show. Every merchandise related to Looney Tunes would cause her to try and get away as quickly as possible. I took my niece to Walmart. We had to go there to grab some groceries and supplies for her art class. As I picked up some colored pencils, I heard my niece let out a yelp as if something had startled her. It turned out that she had noticed a coloring book that had Bugs Bunny in front of it. She wanted to leave the aisle as quickly as possible. I covered the book and then checked out of the store with her. I didn't understand my niece's behavior. I know Looney Tunes is weird at times, but they're still kid-friendly despite the banned episodes. I know it's something that can be enjoyed by both kids and adults. That's why they made shows amazing back then. Not to sound like a 90s person, but I had to show my niece the light. Maybe I could convince her to like the Looney Tunes again. About an hour later, I finally had the courage to ask about the show. My niece apologized for her behavior at the store. Despite being startled, she didn't do anything to warrant an apology, but I accepted it regardless. After talking to her for a bit, I convinced her to tell me about the experience she had with Looney Tunes. She was watching television one night when one of her babysitters were cooking. It wasn't the actual show. It was a spin-off, Baby Looney Tunes. If you don't know anything about the show, it takes place in a home run by Granny. She's the one who always was beating up Sylvester. It's a dull/boring experience, with most of the episodes having nothing interesting to look at. The cast also had little to no personality compared to the regular adult counterparts. Its only purpose was to have morals at the end and attempt to teach kids right from wrong. The icing on the cake was the forgettable songs. My niece claimed that the episode she started watching off was at Granny's residence. The Baby Looney Tunes cast is playing indoors during a thunderstorm. Petunia Pig is shown running from Tasmanian Devil in a comical and cute sort of way. Everyone watches Tasmanian chase the pig out of the playroom and then go back to what they were doing. Afterwards, Sylvester shows up, entering the room and looking nervous. Sylvester then goes up to Bugs and Daffy, who are passing an inflatable ball around. He tries to talk to both of them, but stutters a bit. Unable to get the sentence out, he quickly runs off. Bugs tries to get up and go after Sylvester, but Daffy stops him, telling him that it's nothing to really worry about. Daffy believes that it's none of their business, and Bugs lets out a sigh. Despite the situation, Bugs and Daffy quickly go back to playing. Sylvester is seen wandering the home. He bumps into Melissa Duck and quickly runs off after Melissa tried greeting him. He's then seen trying to hide from everyone, but is found at each attempt. Sylvester gives up after he's discovered 4 times and heads towards the kitchen. He finds Granny is cooking something. Sylvester is quickly noticed by the caretaker. Granny looks at Sylvester and tried asking him what was wrong. After Granny's question, my niece told me that the rest of the scene only showed Sylvester, who was stuttering words about. It takes a little for him to break out the stuttering and say his first line in the episode. I want to eat Tweety. The next scene reveals that 2 days had passed. Bugs and Daffy are now drawing. Their skills aren't that good since they're infants. Daffy points out that he hadn't seen Sylvester for a few days, which causes Bugs to become concerned. He finally convinces Daffy that they need to find him. The two explore the household, looking under various objects, and it isn't until they reach an empty room that isn't shown in any other episodes that Sylvester is found. He's locked in a cage. The cage was supposedly rigged with electrical wires around it, which would have been normal for the main series, but this was shown in a watered-down spin-off, a show that had no signs of violence or abuse before this. Bugs is terrified and is obviously not taking it well. He asks Sylvester why he was being punished. He replied telling Bugs that he's a monster and needed to get locked away to protect everyone. When questioned about it, Sylvester said that he was only taking Granny's advice. Then cuts abruptly to Tweety, who is crying, who is being confronted by Granny. A couple of bandages are seen applied to a bite mark. Tweety was sobbing in the pain he was in, unable to control his tears. "Why would he do this? He was my best friend. Did I do something bad?" Granny then spoke. "It's part of growing up. Your friends will eventually show their true colors and only think for themselves. Everyone is destined to break away and hate each other at some point." Tweety's sobbing worsens. "When you're older, you'll understand." After Granny's speech, Bugs and Daffy are shown arguing. Bugs wants to free Sylvester while Daffy is paranoid and wants to keep him locked away. The two begin yelling at each other. Lola hears the commotion from another room and rushes in to see what the arguing is taking place. She is horrified when she sees Bugs beating up Daffy physically. She backs away without Bugs noticing her presence and runs away. Daffy is unconscious. Bugs tries freeing Sylvester, who tries to scare Bugs away by threatening him. Before Bugs can unlock the cage, Granny enters the room. She ignores Bugs, grabbing the cage and leaving. Granny is never shown again, implying that she was abandoning everyone. Bugs leaves the cage room. Everything in the house is now decayed and falling apart. Bugs tries to call out for his friends and believes they're all playing outside before he leaves the house. Bugs shortly finds a straight path and decides to follow it. After walking on this path for a little, Bugs runs into Wile E. Coyote, who is trying to catch the Roadrunner. Bugs ignores the two and continues his walk until he finds Petunia Pig exhausted, getting dragged off by Taz. When he reaches the end of the hallway, Bugs finds all of his old friends. A lot of characters represented here. Marvin the Martian is traumatized, Sylvester is free from his cage, giving in to his feline nature, and no longer looking like his toddler self. He was trying to catch something, but what it was remained a mystery. Upon seeing Sylvester, my niece closed her eyes for the rest of the episode and sobbed. There were more characters presented after Sylvester also. Before the episode ended, there was one final line. "This is the price of maturity." This is said in Bugs' voice before the episode ends. My niece broke into tears after finishing her story. I had no choice but to believe her. Those certainly were not crocodile tears. I tried comforting her, trying to explain that the Looney Tunes weren't meant to be taken seriously. Am I right to believe her? Call it gullible if you want, but the amount of detail describing me by my niece was amazing. Even if the episode didn't exist and was all a lie, she knew how to make up a story. I know kids are creative, but this was also strange to hear my niece talking about something and that's this dark in a kid's show. I sat down on my television earlier in the morning to catch Baby Looney Tunes in hope of seeing that episode, but I gave up after a few weeks of regular episodes. I guess I should have been more persistent. I apologize if I've taken your time. I know it may be selfish on my part, but this is where you come in. If you're still interested in working with me to try and recreate this episode, send me an email. The darker take on my childhood intrigues me. Once I get enough people, I'll make sure of it that I remove the post. And that, my little shadows, was Looking for Professional Artist. A Baby Looney Tunes lost episode creepypasta. My final thoughts on the story? Oh my gosh, was this story mind-blowing. Not only that, but this was freaking, oh wow, just, I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless at how well done, amazingly made, and just downright epic kind of freaking story this was. And the fact that this was based off of Baby Looney Tunes, I might add. I remember I used to watch that as a kid. I actually enjoyed it a lot. But you know something that this story did? It answered a major question that I had. What in the world happened, to the Baby Looney Tunes when they grew up? Because, if you actually watch the show, they're all good friends to one another. Sylvester and Tweety and everyone like that. I mean, Daffy and Bugs, all of those. I mean, if you really think about it, they're all good, close friends. I mean, yeah, they're toddlers, but still, they're all good friends and things like that. And it always, was concerning as to what in the world happened. Like, quite literally, what happened to all of them? Because if you think about it, many of them hate each other now. But this story, holy shit, it answered my question in the best way possible. I mean, this story is beautiful. This is probably one of the top-notch lost episode creepypastas I've ever narrated in my life. And I am so freaking glad that I actually managed to find this story. I mean, I'm so glad I actually read through it a little bit. But wow, this story, people. Okay, enough monologuing. Let's actually talk about the review. What did I like best about the story? Obviously, for one, I loved the interesting way it all started out. It didn't start off with, like blood, gore, garage sales, or anything. This started off as like a simple post for somebody who's looking to find animators and such to be able to, or an artist, to sit there and make and recreate this specific episode of Looney Tunes that her niece actually wound up seeing, which was very original and very creative in and of its own self, which is awesome. And then it actually decided to go into, and it built up very, very beautifully. It built up with, her talking about her niece, where all this came from, what happened, and the niece, why she doesn't like Looney Tunes, and, the whole freak out and everything. And, originally I thought this was going to have like a bit of a cliched answer to it, but no. It shattered my expectations to pieces, and I love it. It basically just had an entire, episode of Baby Looney Tunes, where Sylvester is trying to, talk to somebody, and then later on goes and tells Granny that he wants to eat Tweety, and then in the process of it, later on, winds up taking a bite out of him. I always thought that Tweety was actually a girl, shockingly enough. Who else thought that Tweety was a girl? Well, he isn't. But taking a bite out of Tweety, and let me just say one thing now, it's realistic in a lot of ways, especially with how the characters themselves react to these kind of things in the actual show, which really helped a lot more with it. And the fact that he was locked in a freaking cage, I mean, come on, that was nuts! But at the same time, though, it was really good. Now, I actually think that might have been him that actually did that. I don't think Granny really would have done that to Sylvester. I think Sylvester did that to himself, to sit there and try and prevent himself from, doing anything harmful to the other, the other characters. I mean, even he himself even says that he did that more or less to, to prevent himself from, hurting anyone. But I also enjoyed the really dark, but awesome line work that Granny said. Like, she said, "It's a part of growing up. Your friends will eventually show their true colors and only think for themselves. Everybody is destined to break away and hate each other at some point. And when you're older, you're under..." How true is that? I mean, not only did it get a creepypasta that actually is an amazing creepypasta lost episode, but it actually does... It speaks a whole lot of truth. I can't tell you how many old friends I used to have that ultimately backstabbed me in the past. And that's precisely what will ultimately happen to a lot of people. Not always, but still. It will eventually get to somewhere like that. And, I mean, and then it shows Daffy and, Bugs fighting, and then the whole thing with the house being rotting away, and everybody just going their own path. That was by far one of the best ways, the best endings, more or less, to a lost episode. And the price for maturity was just spot on and beautiful, and ended it very, 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 very well. Like, extremely well. And the ending was just awesome, too. Like, flat out awesome. Like, seriously, somebody sitting there and saying, send me an email and, see if we can try and remake this, because this person is interested. And hell, if I had any artwork skills, I'd frickin' do it. But honestly, this was an amazing story. A lot of effort was put into this. The grammar is beautiful. The sentence structuring is beautiful. The storytelling is beautiful. The realism is beautiful. The concept in the actual lost episode is beautiful. Everything just beautiful, beautiful, mother freaking beautiful. I love every ounce of this story. And if anything, I thought that this wasn't a lost episode story, but I'm glad I looked into it. Because it is, and it's the best damn one I've actually read so far. I mean, this is actually about as up there as Kid vs. Kat Split Personality. And I love that story as well. But seriously, this is by far the gold standard of lost episode creepypastas, and to the author, you did such an amazing job with this story. You did such an amazing job actually discussing this kind of thing. You did such an amazing job that, honestly, if I didn't have a microphone in my hand right now, I'd be giving you a round of a freaking applause. I mean, I'd probably do it with my feet, but I'm wearing socks, so yeah. But of course, like I always say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own personal opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply mine, but I would love to hear what you think down in the comments section below. My final rating of the story, I'm giving this one a 10 out of freaking 10. This was everything. Beautiful, well made, awesome, freaky, and so real that it hurts. Amazing. What did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you have done to help make the story better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. And like always, roll the outro because I'm out.
In fear and surprise as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping, horror-driven, nightmarish, gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.